Welcome to the Tuesday, March 24th Town Council Committee of the Whole. It is 6:33 and I call the meeting to order. All councilors are present. 8 councilors are present remotely. 1 councilor is present in person. We have 9. We have a quorum. Calendar and communications. Councilor Baumgartner.
Nothing to report other than my thoughts and prayers are with several individuals in town who are facing what is going to go down as one of the most unprecedented events we've ever faced in my lifetime, and certainly many others. Again, our thoughts are with their families during this time, and we wish each and every one of those individuals a healthy and quick recovery. And I know we'll be getting into more of the town's response to COVID-19, but stay vigilant and be sure to continue social distancing and self-isolation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baumgartner. Councilor Parker, please.
Just the email, receiving communications and reiterating what Councilor Baumgartner said about families. Our thoughts and prayers with everyone right now.
Thank you, Councilor Parker. Councilor Franco.
I attended the Sports Field Task Force meeting. There will be another one again on March 26th via Zoom. I had communications from numerous citizens in regards to the budget matters, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'd like to acknowledge Groton has had a person that tested positive, and I would like to wish them a full recovery, as well as inform our residents that they should follow the governor's executive orders that were recently enacted. And I believe John Burt will be giving an update later in our meeting. Though during this unprecedented time, I have the citizens of Groton in my thoughts and prayers. And if there's anything I can do to help you, please reach out to me. And I also want to tell Groton citizens and businesses that I fully understand the financial hardships that they are facing now, and will take these thoughts with me into deliberations when we go into our budget meetings. And I believe the taxpayers will be dealing with an enormous burden this coming year. And I'm keeping my eyes on everything that's going on in town. And I wish everybody a very safe and healthy next couple of months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Franco. Councilor Heed, please.
Yes, I also have received numerous communications regarding budget items, and aside from that, we'd just like to wish everybody to stay safe and stay home.
Councilor Aubry.
Hello. I just want to reiterate what Neil Diamond had to say with Sweet Caroline. A little music makes it a little easier. Wash your hands, wash your hands. Be safe, be safe. Stay inside. I'll tell you, I'm away from home and it's very difficult. So all of you take good care of yourself. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councilor Aubry. Councilor Melendez.
I received numerous emails and communications on budget items. I've read them all. And other than that, just stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Councilor Melendez. And Councilor Zepari is with you, Mr. Burt.
Yes, he is.
I've had a number of people contact me about the coronavirus crisis that we're in the midst of, and it is a true crisis, a healthcare threat. But along with this healthcare threat has come an economic upheaval and fall and a decrease in the ability of many of our people to pay their basic expenses for sustenance, their rents, their food, their gas. They've impressed on me, and I fully agree with them, that we on the council have to be extraordinarily careful to reduce our spending in this upcoming budget season. We have to look at every request and try to make it lower. We have to look at what can be put off until next year. The people cannot afford an increase in taxes. In fact, they cannot afford a tax rate that they've endured in the last year or two. So those are thoughts that come to me from some of our citizens, and I'm in full concurrence with them.
Councilor Bordelon, please.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm thinking of everyone in the town, not only the people that are currently being affected, let it be an illness that they're not able to access a test for yet, or the ability to deal with a loved one that may be afar that they are not able to be with right now. As a person who works in the medical field, I'm seeing the impact, and I just also want to thank all the healthcare workers, first responders, town officials, police, fire, all the people that, despite some people maybe being laid off, are having to go in, and not only go in, but be exposed directly with patients that could actively be contagious, and we may not know. So I just want to think of all of those people right now and say, you know, my hat's off to you, and thank you for your dedication and commitment to serve your town and community in such a tough time. At the time when you sign up to be in the medical field or in a field in such, you sometimes don't realize that you're going to be impacted like this, and you have to go in no matter. So with that, I also share the concerns with the budget, as well as looking at ways that we can help our community. And I also want to thank all the people that have jumped in and taken it upon themselves to resurrect food supplies and helping out others and neighbors. Also, the Groton Public Schools continuing to feed our community despite the difficulty. My hat's off to you. There's a community here that needs that, and I'm sure they are thankful. Also, looking at the other towns that I've been in communication with friends in different communities, I want to say it's exciting to see how Groton, some people were not for those tablets that they didn't want to budget for, and well, they're here and they're working, and the kids have been on it, and I've seen my kids on it, and I just want to commend you guys for your efforts. And everyone, please stay safe and please reach out, and I want to hear your concerns.
Thank you, Councilor Bordelon. Councilor Parker, I believe you wanted to add something.
Yes, thank you. I forgot to mention that I attended the TVCCA meeting via teleconference. Thank you, this evening.
Thank you. Okay, just everybody out there watching this, please bear with us. We are new at this, and it is new experience for all of us dealing with this, but we're doing our best to take care of the town's business. As other councilors have expressed, we have your best interest in mind when we are taking the actions we're taking. Mr. Burt has done a stellar job in managing the public health, and we continue to support. We've received, or I've received, many communications on a variety of issues, budget, public health, people reaching out to offer support and requesting to have their voice heard for public hearings. Having said that, the town website has a link to a new email that's been set up for just this purpose, council@groton-ct.gov. And I believe Mr. Greeley may be able to put it on the screen when he runs this for YouTube, but it is on the town webpage. If you have comments that you want to make under citizens petitions or at hearings, please direct them to that email and they will become part of the public record. And I think that's it. We're going to go back to Mr. Burt now to give us an update on what he's been doing on behalf of the town. to keep us safe and to keep the town functioning as best we can. Mr. Burt.
Hi, first of all, for those of you who have received emails concerning the budget, if you want to forward those to me, I can make those part of the record too. That would be great. Been busy, lots of conference calls and getting together, talking with different municipalities and the state and just ongoing. Last week, our attorney, Eileen Duggan and Bob Zagami and I met with each of the unions. We've been working with each department for plans for how can well, first of all, I should mention, we're trying to get as many people as we can set up for remote working. I think we'll have all the laptops done tomorrow. We're just about there, about 55, 56 laptops or so. I did have to order about 20 or so. But we're doing a plan to get people spread out, do some flexible hours, work with people, get people remote working where they can. We met with each department. We've got an initial plan for each department. They're all very much different from one another in their needs. That information has gone to our attorney. We want to make sure there's no issues legally with what we're looking at, but then we'll also confer this week with the unions, and hopefully we'll be able to start staggering things by the end of this week. But we also are planning for if there is a shutdown at some point, who's essential and how we're going to work through that. We did yesterday, Parks and Rec closed down playground equipment. And then we put new restrictions on the golf course, no golf carts because we don't have the ability to keep them wiped down. We've staggered the times so people aren't on top of each other. The flags are gone, the wash bucket's gone, that kind of stuff. Trying to keep people not touching the same surfaces. So just preparing. Any questions? And if you don't mind, I just got a text that there's an issue with it showing up on YouTube. Sean, do you know? People are saying it's not showing up on YouTube. Will you check that? No, Sean's checking to see what's going on with it.
John,
Yes.
it's on YouTube.
It is?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on the Groton Municipal Television.
Okay, it's on the Groton Municipal Television. Good. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Burt, did you have other comments you wanted to make as far as what the town is doing to protect the public safety?
Like I said, we're trying to I also encourage people to social distance. We're continuing to keep an eye on the golf course. Other municipal courses are open at this point, and it is an outdoor activity, and I see a lot of states have exempted them, but we're keeping a close eye on it. Ledge Light have asked, they're looking at if there's any complaints about anybody not following the rules from the governor's executive order, that they can look into it, and as well as our police department can too. So you could call either one if you need any help with anything or understanding the rules. That's what I have so far.
I just wanted to say, I see Councilor Franco does have a question, but I wanted to let the people at home know if they are following anything on social media, all the official posts from the town of Groton are being churned out through the town of Groton Police Department
Correct.
page.
Right.
Did you want to address that, Mr. Burton?
Yeah, that's where it's starting at, and it's all information that has been verified is accurate, so feel free to repost that anywhere you want to. Our police department and Jessica Patterson and Parks and Rec are doing a great job with that. And I should also mention, of course, people probably know at this point, but in order to come into the town buildings, you have to make an appointment or call when you get there, so that we don't have people stacking in the building. That's another thing. We started that a couple of weeks ago, trying to keep control of that. So we're continuing on with that right now. And it seems to be working very well, and actually, we haven't had any complaints so far, so knock on wood.
All right, we have Councilor Franco with a question for Mr. Burton.
Yes, there was a recent positive test, and I know many people in the town are very interested in who this person is, if they've had contact with them, where they've been. And can you speak on that and what information you may know or are allowed to say?
I basically know what went out in the what was released. Other than I do know Ledge Light is following back, everywhere, tracing back to see where the origin is. So that's really Ledge Light's bailiwick there. But Steve keeps me updated of any new Steve Mansfield, the director, keeps me updated on any new developments.
So basically, the town cannot, there's no more
Right.
information other than a
No.
52-year-old female that you know of that
Right.
we're allowed to share with anybody.
Correct.
Thank you.
Counselor Baumgartner has a question for Mr. Byrd as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. John, has the town conducted an inventory of PPE or personal protective equipment for each department right now?
We have a handle on it, and also I know that Chief Fasaro, regionally, they're releasing some things through the, I don't know if it's originally federal, but through the state to each region, and he was supposed to pick up some more protective equipment either today or tomorrow. He's got numbers on that. I don't have those with me, but we were getting a little worried, frankly, about our public works people, but however, they've actually come up with more and are doing well right now. But I can get a more detailed report, though. Once we get this shipment to Chief Fasaro, I can get you some more information, though, on it.
Thank you.
But we are doing fine right now.
Looking to see if anyone else has a question. Counselor Bordelon for Mr. Byrd.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could, I just had a question. Are we using any other forms of getting the information out besides the police website?
Well, we also put stuff generally on our website, too, also. On the actual, we have a COVID section, if you go to our front page at groton-ct.gov.
And then my other question is supplies. Are we lacking any supplies, or how are we doing as far as our, supplies for the essentials that we need to keep the town running?
So far, we're doing well. We're doing department meetings remotely every couple of days, just seeing where everything's at. Of course, we don't wait to talk till those. I'm constantly talking to departments and making sure they tell me if there's any issues on the horizon. And we were a little worried about PPE just for our public works, like I said, and Chief Fasaro started reaching out to his sources to try to obtain more, as well as our purchasing agent, Eileen Cardillo, started doing the same thing. Now like I said, we're taking possession of more, plus we actually, in Public Works, they ended up going through the inventory and finding more than they thought they had, so they've got a good supply right now.
So Bordelon, did you have anything else?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. Please be patient with me. I'm scrolling through to make sure no one else has questions. I hate to miss somebody, but this is all new, so bear with us, please, if you're watching at home, if things seem to be moving slowly. Are there any other questions for Mr. Burt? Okay. Counselor Baumgartner?
It may be helpful to address some of the public's concerns. I think some of us have received emails with respect to the upcoming budget process and how we're going to, conduct meetings, and certainly some other public hearings that will be coming up with respect to property sales. And I could only imagine there are going to be several others who would like to be involved in kind of the public process. So maybe for the purposes of the public, could you explain maybe what the how the town will be proceeding with the town council meetings and perhaps some of the other boards and commission meetings moving forward, and how the public can stay abreast of what's taking place with those respective boards and commissions?
Sure. We already touched on the budget presentation on Thursday night. As I said, if you can get me any emails sent to us or letters to my attention, will get put in the record. I was also thinking that I wanted to see all the ones we have, but I could also mention topics briefly during the public hearing on camera. Of course, it'll be televised, as well as people could ask questions afterwards. But we'll make sure everybody gets heard on the record and all council members see everything said. In terms of the budget meetings, now in terms of other, just generally, for instance, we have a planning and zoning committee meeting going right now in another room here. That's also being taped and broadcast as a teleconference from Zoom. we're doing that for all meetings, making sure people can hear every meeting, that public meeting we have go on, even if it's not, some of them aren't normally. We had the RTM Finance Committee last Thursday night. We did make that available so people could hear it publicly. We don't, that is a public meeting, but we don't usually broadcast it, but we did Thursday night. We'll continue on with that. In terms of the budget process, there's a couple of factors on that. There's been some discussion, or at least the idea thrown out, on shortening the process, maybe for the council, having an all-day meeting on Saturday morning to night. I still need to hear the council members' thoughts on it, but there's some different reasons. I don't have my notes in front of me. Just so the council is aware, that 30-day extension of time that the governor did in Executive Order 7C, they did not anticipate us having an RTM and a council, so it's a little different. Both our end dates are only into end of May. It doesn't extend it beyond that. The biggest concern is whether this is going to get worse. We only have a couple staff members that run the budget meetings, and if anybody gets sick, if there's a lockdown, other things, that could jeopardize the budget process. So the council's going to have to decide if they do want to move forward with an accelerated budget process. Now, if nothing's done, if we don't adopt something as of right now by, I think it's May 28th, depending if the council doesn't adopt something by then, it'll be my budget becomes the budget. If the council adopts something and the RTM doesn't, it would become, the council's budget would become the official budget per the charter. So there's some things to think about. And then if we somehow did get an extension beyond May 28th, which is not the case yet from the governor, then we would have to think about, there's some major issues if we hold off, both if it's even worse if we do nothing to adopt a budget until after everything, until the midsummer. That would cause potential cash flow issues there, but it would cause a variety of issues. I've actually got a draft letter to the council prepared that I'm going to release soon, so it'll detail it further. And then I need to hear back from council members. Oh, and then for the, April 7th public hearing, same thing. People can get me comments, and I'll mention them on during the meeting, during the public comments. John Reiner will be here live to do a presentation, and we'll make sure everything's part of the record and available for the public to see as well as council members. Sorry.
That's all right. So then we will be posting, hopefully, that email address where people can email comments. They can also use snail mail to contact you, 45 Fort Hill Road,
Right.
Groton, Connecticut, 06340.
And if you can, write down whatever, you might have a comment for planning commission or some other board or commission. Please tell us which board or commission you're interested in, which date, and which item if you can, so that we make sure it gets to the right place.
Right. So this is just an example of what's been going on with town staff. They have been trying to maintain business as usual, but also planning for all these strange contingencies that are happening. And unfortunately, more and more of them are actually coming to be, and they're having to take the steps that they've been planning for. So we're fortunate in that regard that there is some planning that has been done, and we're moving forward with things, and we are able to do the town's business. So thank you, Mr. Burton, town staff, for facilitating that for the people of Groton. I believe Councilor Bordelon has another question.
Patrice, I'd like to get in line if I can.
Did you hear that?
I was also wondering if we would have an actual possible statement or brief from our emergency response for our town stating, I know we have the post coming up, but actually having something that's put out by, press release or on our page or something to kind of detail exactly what we have in place in detail, and maybe possibly as we move forward through this. I think we're doing a great job, and this is something that no one even knows how to deal with. But maybe some more different releases of information about what things we're planning to do if situations were to get worse. Things like that, not so much maybe just the current information, like we have a positive and what we're doing, which is all great information. But I think some of the response I've heard is looking more down the road. What is our plans in place, or what do we plan to do in our town if things were to get a lot worse.
Well, first of all, a lot of that's dictated by the governor through his executive orders, and there's been ones coming out almost daily that we're trying to react to. Beyond that, like I said, we're working on plans for each department. They're each going to be different, and as they have to be vetted before I can release anything, so I can't show anything on departments till they go through the attorneys, through the unions, that type of thing. But everything I can release has been released so far.
I guess I maybe didn't state my question clearly. What I was trying to say was for the citizens. What are we doing for the citizens if we needed to?
I should also, we're keeping of course, senior center is continuing with food distribution. People can pay and pick it up. The human services has been, they're prepared to. We've got a lot of volunteers. We got at least a couple of churches. We got Rotary Club offering volunteering, so that if we have to, we can help gather food. If there's any kind of, depending on how the rules are per the executive order. That's the hard thing, is every executive order has been difficult, and they're not always. Even the attorneys sometimes have trouble interpreting exactly what they mean for us. But we're going to try to do everything we can to help the public with. If you don't have money to order food and you're in a lockdown, that we can help get volunteers to get food to you. We're going to continue everything we can of that nature that we do currently. So.
My last piece to that was looking at the homeless. I know we have an identified homeless population here. Have we done any reaching out and ensuring that their needs are being met, or making sure the services that they utilize, they're not being boxed out of at all? I know there's a certain section where there's a large population.
Right. And I can't say we've gone there in the last couple of weeks. We have people that go there fairly routinely to make sure they're aware of where they can get help, ask if they currently want help. That's a fairly standard practice we do, but I'll make sure we do that again.
Thank you. Thank you for all your comments.
If everybody could just please silence their devices, because it's being picked up on microphone as we're going here. Mr. Burt, Councilor Zepari is with you, and he wanted to.
Yeah, I'd just like to know the impact of the pandemic on the 2020 project and the school constructions.
Sure. As of now, we're continuing on. Of course, construction was exempted in the executive orders. Construction continues. I know I just received an email today that lists some of the things they're doing to try to keep the workers safe there. However, Rick Norris, who's our kind of point person with the project, called me a couple hours ago, said they haven't listed out everything. We've also taken the O&G, the general contractor, has put in a series of things, but also the town has done some things. So they're going to put a more full list together, and I can get that to everybody as soon as I get it. But it is ongoing. We're on schedule, and there's no issues so far. We'll see how it all goes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will move on to item number 4, approval of minutes. This is item 4A, 2020-193, March 10th, 2020 minutes on page 2. And we have Councilor Baumgartner.
He is muted. Hold on a second. Oh.
Yeah, I can't get him unmuted.
I owe him one. You want me to read it?
He should be okay now. Andre, you should be okay right now, it looks like.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the committee of the whole meeting minutes for March 10th, 2020. So moved.
Second.
That was moved by Baumgartner and seconded by Heed. I have one correction, or I have a couple corrections to the minutes. Page 3, please. Under calendar and communications, third paragraph, where it says, I have been in touch with first selectman of, it should read Stonington and not North Stonington. And it should read that Stonington is looking at options to fund the bridge. The bridge is the North Stonington Road Bridge, but I spoke to the first selectman in Stonington regarding that. And I think there's one second. On page 8 or 5 from the bottom, in response to Councilor Bordelon, Mr. Reiner stated that TIF money is not being used for this project. Too many Fs in TIF. These are just basic things, nothing major. And that's all I have. Is there other comments on the minutes? Let's see. I'm looking at this. We have Councilor. That's it, I think.
I think
Anybody
Councilor Franco has something.
Councilor Franco has, okay, I thought that was from the last conversation. Thank you. Go ahead.
Let me unmute her. Okay, hold on a second. There you go. You should be good now.
We're both reading it together.
Ready?
Yes,
Yep.
we are. Thank you.
Okay. I have on page 6, the very last sentence. The word not should be removed. This is in regards to Don Marr coming back to us regarding the concept plan, and it says Councilor Franco clarified that this is not a usual thing the council does.
What page are you on, please?
Page 6, the last sentence. And after I clarified that,
Councilor Franco clarified that this is not a usual thing the council does.
right, and the word not should be removed, because we had clarified that we had done the same thing for Route 184.
Yeah.
Or we will be doing the same thing.
Right.
Okay.
Also, page 8. I believe we are, after I'm reading the minutes, they are extremely detailed. But then there are other things that are missing because there is so much detail. There are other things that are missing. So it's like so I will just speak for my portion of this. Where it says Councilor Franco, it's in the middle of the page, mentioned that she has concerns about the appraisal amount, who has been paying taxes on the property, the mortgage deed, and how the issue is going to be resolved. I also have concerns how it's going to be resolved and how the town has handled the paperwork within the land records department and the title as well. I mean, there was a lot more to what I had said than simply this, as well as if the property was transferred over in the deed within their mortgage. So there's a lot more that I had said in this than just what is stated there. But it seems like we're going into extreme depth now with the minutes that I don't know where we're going to stop here, but I'm just letting you know this, that mine is more than what's stated here. And actually, if at all possible, could John Burt please, since this topic is right here, at some point in the meeting with John Burt, please give us an update on the town records regarding this property. But that's my correction.
Thank you. Are there other counselors?
Can I just respond?
Yes.
I don't have any. We've just been waiting for the appraisal to come in. I gave the numbers at the time. Until the appraisal comes in, I don't have anything further to add to that. But in terms of the length of the minutes, it's taking Lisa several hours to do this. She can't. If we do more than this, we will contract out for a transcript. So it's either lessen them or transcript or keep them the same. This is pretty onerous for her as it is. Yeah.
Okay, so right now we need to approve these minutes. So if there is no more correction to the minutes, we will vote on approval of 2021-93 March 10th, 2020 minutes. All those in favor, how are we going to do this?
Madam Mayor,
Excuse me, Councilor Parker, yes.
can we just raise our hands?
You can give it a try. I don't know that, give it a try and see. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 There are no hands. Okay, are there any objections?
Oh,
I can see Councilor Parker's hand. Are there objections?
Oh.
No objections? Seeing none, all the minutes are approved, 9 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. I think for the next one, I may just have to go through and do a roll call on that because that was not the best.
I'm
We'll
gonna-
get the hang of this. Go ahead, Mr. Burke.
Can I go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and add in the attendees for this next item, if that's okay?
Yes, please. We will, while you're doing that, I will have Counselor Parker read the introduction, if that's all right. So we are on to 5A, 2020-175 Children First Groton Collaborative Grant. And this is on page 13 with the resolution on page 14. Counselor Parker, please. Are you unmuted? Counselor Parker?
I am now.
Thank you.
Clarification, you want me to read the background or not?
No, just the motion, please, to get the discussion started.
I might make a motion to recommend a resolution authorizing the superintendent of schools, Dr. Mike Bernier, to execute the contract agreement between the Connecticut Council for Philanthropy, as the fiscal sponsor for the Connecticut Early Childhood Funder Collaborative and the Groton Public Schools as the fiscal sponsor for the Children First Groton School Readiness Council Collaborative, and to receive the grant funding in the amount of $20,600 and refer this item to RTM under 6.5.3. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Parker and seconded by Franco. Mr. Burt, you've invited in the other.
Yeah, right now I have Linda Allen invited in. She had someone else she wanted to invite in, but they have not called in yet per the phone number that's being provided. But right now, Ms. Allen can speak and has joined us.
Thank you. I am going to ask Ms. Allen to start us off, and then Councilor Melendez is our liaison, so he will follow up when Ms. Allen is done.
I do have the other one. Now I also have, I just lost, Nadine Macklin has also joined us.
I am not seeing you.
It's on the attendees to the right. You see panelists on the left. These are attendees on the right.
Okay.
I can promote them to panelists if you'd like.
That's fine. Ms. Allen, it's all yours.
Hi, I see Nadine's number up.
Yeah, she's joined us
Yes,
too.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Hi,
I'm here.
Nadine.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So we're really excited about this opportunity that's been afforded to us through the state and this philanthropic organization. We were really excited when we received it in early January. We applied for it, and we received the news, as was stated earlier, that we are now the recipients of the $20,600 that has to be spent by June 30th. And we're really looking forward to utilizing these funds as a council, as a school readiness council, to strengthen the organizational systems in our school readiness council, in addition to Children's First Groton, to really extend opportunities and just any type of resources that will help strengthen Groton as a whole as it relates to early childhood. And that also includes our collaboration with the public school system.
Thank you. Ms. Macklin, did you want to add anything?
Oh, that was me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Linda.
That's okay.
That's okay.
No, I just wanted to let you know that the group, this is, it is supported by the Preschool Development Grant, Birth to 5 initiative. And the state of Connecticut has been also given, awarded a 3-year grant, a PDG, and they're looking forward to putting out another opportunity for larger grant funds sometime this spring, although I don't know if that will change based on what we're all experiencing right now. And they are anticipating that money would be available as of July 1st.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Councilor Melendez, did you want to add anything to this, since this is your organization that you work with?
Yeah, I've I've learned a lot about their group, and
Bless you.
they're going to use some of this money to increase the diversity of the council, which I think is fantastic. They have another grant, as just mentioned, coming up that's going to be bigger. So I think this is just fantastic. I've been learning about all the work that they do for all the birth through 5 in Groton, and I'm happy to be on their team, and it's just fantastic. So yep, nothing else.
Thank you. And thank you for serving as the council's representative to the organization. Mr. Byrd, if you would please, before we open this up for discussion, if you could just refresh everyone's memory on the grant approval process, please. So where we're going with this,
Sure.
what comes next in the steps.
Sure. It had already gone through the Board of Ed. It comes then to the Town Council, who refer it to the RTM. And so the RTM will take it up at their next meeting. You sent it 653, so hopefully it'll be referred to the likely Education Committee and then go to the full RTM.
Thank you. Do any councilors have questions for either Ms. Allen, Ms. Macklin, or Councilor Melendez? Okay.
Councilor Franco has a question.
Oh, okay. Very good. Are you unmuting? I'll unmute. There you go. Go ahead, Councilor Franco.
I was just wondering, is there any type of matching grant required from the town?
There's not.
Okay, and just one other question. When I was looking through this application, I was a little taken back and was wondering why they ask I believe it's the collaborators what their race and ethnicity is. I was just wondering why is that? Does anybody have a question?
This is Nadine Macklin. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason is because a part of the work that they want to strengthen among collaboratives regarding early childhood is increasing the racial, cultural, and linguistic diversity of the collaborative. So they want to see, have we even begun the work of being inclusive in terms of, broadening our scope of including individuals from, multicultural and various backgrounds.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, let me check. Mr. Burt, do you see anybody else that wants to speak? I'm not seeing anyone else.
Don't see anybody else.
Okay, so I'm going to call roll, I think is the easiest way to do this.
Do you want me to unmute all, or do you want?
I got it.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask those, just say yay or nay, please, when I call your name. And this is for 2020-175 Children First Groton Collaborative Grant. Councilor Baumgardner.
Yay.
Councilor Parker.
Yay.
Councilor Franco.
Yay.
Councilor Heed.
Yay.
Councilor Aubrey.
I think she may be having trouble with her speaker, with her microphone. Oh. She may need
Councilor
to.
Aubrey, can you hear us?
It has mute.
I can't get her unmuted. Councilor Aubrey, are you there? I'm going to come back to you, Councilor Aubrey. Councilor Bordelon.
Yay.
Councilor Melendez.
Yay.
Councilor Zapari.
Yay.
Councilor Granatowski is an aye as well. And Councilor Aubrey, are you in favor? Councilor Aubrey, we're having trouble with the audio for Councilor Aubrey. Okay. We're going to count that as 8 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstention. And we'll hope that we can get the audio back on that. So that passes. Thank you, Ms. Allen and Ms. Macklin, for coming out or for tuning in this evening. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much for
Thank
the
you for
opportunity.
having, yeah,
You
Go
might want
ahead.
to try
Go ahead.
thank you for
relogging
having
in.
us. Thank you for having us.
You might
Thank
want
you, and
to
good
try
luck with your
relogging
grant.
in.
Thank you
Yeah,
for your
thank you
work.
for the opportunity.
Certainly.
Have a nice evening.
You too. Okay, we are on to item 5B, 2020-190 unexpended education funds account. This is on page 31, and I believe we are on to Counselor Franco. There is no motion, so we will get you to the next one. And Mr. Byrd, if you could just give us some background on this, please. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody so that we don't have a lot of background noise.
I'm going to, in terms of explaining it, I'll have Ms. Landry do it, but this came up during a Board of Ed joint meeting between the RTM, the Town Council, and, where did I forget? The Board of Ed. Anyways, it was the idea of an unexpended education fund account came up, and I believe as Councilor Bordelon had asked for us to put it on the agenda for discussion, and Ms. Landry has done research on it and is going to present.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Good evening. So when I was asked to do some research on this, I had put out a request to the Connecticut Government Finance Officers Association message board asking for towns that currently had established such an account. And I had 7 towns that had responded back, 5 of which said they had, and 2 which had considered it but did not. And they had provided me, those towns that did provide me some information. And there doesn't appear to be a standard policy between towns, but you'll see in the referral that I gave you, several of the towns have established policies with some consistencies. And such as the contributions are requested by the Board of Ed and approved by the Town Council. It is based on the year end of unexpended funds for the prior year, so there has to be an agreement with your audit fund of how much the dollar amount is that would be turned over to this fund, which can be no more than 2% of the Board of Education's budget. There's several items that talk about who has control over the funds, what it can be invested in, and then several of them do identify specifically what the funds can be used for, although some use it broadly to say it can be used for books or computers or for other things that are utilized for, it has to be for education, but 3 of the towns specifically identify that the funds have to be used for capital and non-recurring, and they put it into their capital fund. They also have a policy of reviewing it after a predetermined number of years. There's a section that states that it is a non-lapsing and a continuing fund. And they also have that the Board of Ed required to present a report to the Town Council or the legislative body at the end of the year to explain what was purchased and the remaining balance. So that was kind of what I got from the other towns. And as I said, some are more restrictive than others as to how the approval. So if the council were to decide to move forward with this, you have a lot of options to you as to how you would design your policy. But I also came across some items that the council, should they want to proceed with this, might want to consider, such as should there be a minimum dollar threshold of unexpended funds before it's turned over to a non-lapsing account. And if there's a high dollar ticket of Board of Ed funds being returned each year, why would that be? And what the impact on the MBR. It does not impact the MBR. So if the Board of Ed budget continually goes up and there's unexpended funds at the year end that moves into a non-lapsing fund, your MBR does not go down. And, excuse me?
Yes, I can.
Just so everyone knows, Leanne is now on my phone, so she is hearing everything now and can
Great.
speak.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Byrd.
And just as some background, I did also provide you, I went back about 8 years so that the council would have some idea of how much the Board of Ed had turned back in the past years. I did note that there were the 3 years, and I gave an explanation of why there were those large dollar amounts that they had turned back. But usually it's a much smaller, if you exclude those 3 years, from a low of $10,000 to a high of $82,000. So that was the information that I was able to get from the other towns, and if you have questions, I can try to answer them for you, or I can research it further.
Thank you, Director Landry. I'm going to send this to Councilor Bordelon right now because this was her request. So I wanted to see if you wanted to provide anything else for the council before we start discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy, for your update. That's great. And thank you, Mayor, for bringing the conversation to me. It's just something that I've been looking at. I'm looking the number, the districts that you have listed here in on our agenda that we were given. I know New London just recently passed theirs, so maybe their stuff was not up to date, but I did double check on that. And from my understanding, I think it might have been 30 days ago that they passed theirs. I don't know where it stands. I'm waiting to get a copy of their report. But once again, as Cindy so nicely pointed out, that it can be written in a way where it is personal to our town and there is a lot of fluid movement. One of the other things I found in my research is that in 2010 is when I found when this all came to be. And at the time, the percent that could be deposited into the non-lapsing fund was 1%. And the schools, the districts that did get involved in this found such a benefit that they went back up to the state. And in 2019, it was passed that another 2% was allowed. So that's how it's moved over the last 10 years from 2010 to 2018. That's my understanding of what I could dig up. I just felt that if funds in our district come in and they're allocated, let it be wherever the money comes from that's allocated for education, I believe that the money should stay with our students in our municipality for our town for education. With that being said, also, I know there is a concern for our fields in this town. Our high school fields are outdated. They're not up to code. They are not handicap accessible, and they're long overdue to be updated. And I thought, well, maybe this non-lapsing fund would be a way where I believe if it was 2%, I have raw numbers in front of me, maybe it would be 52,000 ballpark, depending what the MBR would be. But that would be a fund where the money could build, and the asset would be that the money could then be used for some of these bigger CIP projects to make sure our infrastructure here in the town is staying up, not only up to code, but is up to league standards for our fields and our use for our sporting fields. As Groton moves towards building new schools, the cost to maintain these buildings with all the different infrastructures that are in place, as far as looking at solar panels down the road and all the different gadgets that go with that, I think it's important where if there is extra money that can be put into this fund and moved towards that, it's an asset to the town, and it's only going to benefit the taxpayer and our student body and improve our fields that are currently behind. So that was my thought. I was looking for information to see, why we never took this up in 2010, and who knows? I mean, none of us were on it, and how we could possibly, if it would be a benefit to our town, and what the impact possibly would be on the taxes. And that was one of the questions I as I'm sitting here thinking for Cindy, how would that change if that money rolls the other way into this non-lapsing fund? And once again, it could be set up in any way. It can say, like as Cindy so nicely put, for books, CIPs, and I just think the money that comes in should stay with the student body and go to our schools, which would only improve our town and improve for the taxpayers for a town people want to come to.
Thank you, Councilor Bordelon. We have several people that wish to speak, but Director Landry wanted to add something at this point.
I just wanted to add that for New London, when I had contacted New London at that time, they did not have it. If they've enacted it in the last 30 days, I'll reach out to them again. But I know at the time I was told they could not come to an agreement between the town and the Board of Education, so they had not moved forward with it.
Thank you, Director Landry.
You're welcome.
We have Councilor
Madam
Heed
Mayor,
and-
please put me in line for people who wish to speak.
Certainly, Councilor Zepari. We have Councilor Heed, Franco, and Zepari.
I'm sorry, I'm still not understanding what this is. So, what is happening with this money that's returned from the school board now? I understand you said it doesn't affect MBR, but if presently we get money back from the school, and instead of it going into, I guess, the general fund, where is it going now? I'm guessing the general fund. And what happens if we instead put it into this other fund, like how does this impact the town budget? I guess that's my question.
Director Landry?
It does go currently into the general fund balance, so it just means there's less available money to take from, so.
This would just create another fund if they had unexpended funds. It would not revert to fund balance, and it would be put into that non-lapsing fund and would continue to accumulate. The Board of Ed, it's my understanding, would vote to spend the money, and then it would come to the council, and the council would also have the ability to vote to allow that expenditure.
All right, so right now the Board of Ed MBR is say $100, and they're giving us back $10 this year. Their MBR remains $100 next year, but aren't we required to spend all of that money with the Board of Ed, or is that not the case? We have to continue to fund them, but they just return the money. Is that right?
Right. It's my understanding, if you were to establish this account and they had $100 and they returned 10 at the year, it would not revert to the general fund. If they came to the council and asked that it be put into this non-lapsing fund, that $10 would go into that fund and sit there until it was approved to be spent.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next up is Councilor Franco.
So let me just clarify the part I just heard. So you're saying if they spend under the MBR, the money would go into this non-lapsing fund. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, if the council so chose to establish this fund.
Instead of the general fund.
Right.
Right. And it would not diminish anything within the state because they're spending below their MBR.
It doesn't now either.
No, it doesn't.
Right.
It's the same.
So what would happen with funds like their grant funds, like the DOD, just say if they don't use it the year that they received it and it was, would that go in here as well?
No, that stays in that separate fund. Because that's not an annual, I mean, they get it annually, but it just keeps accumulating in that fund for whenever they want to use it.
Okay, and if they had CIPs that were not funded or were not used fully, would that go into this fund?
Not CIPs, no. Only their operations.
So it's just operations.
Correct.
Any amount that they would spend under their MBR.
Right.
And so if they had savings, I'm just trying to figure out.
Under the budget. Like,
under the budget.
because the MBR can be different than the budget because the budget can be higher. And it becomes the new next year's MBR.
Can I?
Oh, Cindy wanted to add something.
Rachel, can I just?
Wait.
Can I add something?
I'm sorry. He just said that if they spend less, that would become the next year's MBR?
No, I'm saying whatever the budget is for this year, it becomes
Right.
next year's MBR.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
Oh,
So if
no.
whatever they don't spend of their allocated budget would go into this fund instead of the general fund.
Is this a fund we have now, John?
No. No, it goes into our general fund right now.
Okay,
So
Councilor,
you're looking to separate them.
Well, we're not, it's just an idea brought up. It's not something staff's taking any position on. We're just presenting facts at Councilor Bordelon's request.
Thank you.
so just to clarify then, and I'm not sure if this where Councilor Franco was going or not, and I'm not sure if you were even done, so I apologize if you weren't done. So if they would spend below their budget and they would have money left over, it could go into this non-lapsing fund. Next year, we would still have to contribute the MBR, but they would also have the money left over from the prior year.
Correct.
Okay. I don't know if that's what you, or Councilor Franco, were you finished or do you still need to go?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
So the max they can do is the 2% that's listed there is it, I believe it's 2%, right? On the second page there with all the dollar amounts.
Yes. 2% is the new, right.
So they can put aside up to $1.5 million.
I don't have that page. 2% of their adopted budget, yes. If they were to
Right.
come under budget 2%, then and this fund was established, that entire amount could be moved into this fund. The Board of Ed would ask the council, and the council would vote to move it in there.
And on our page here, it says 2% max allowed would be $1.5 million.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so we have Councilor Zepari next, please.
As this has been shaping up, the current state of affairs is that unused money from the Board of Education at the end of the year returns to the general fund currently. This fund would create a discretionary fund for the Board of Ed and for the school system, which may not be good for the town. There is a budget process in which the Board of Education develops a budget, and they consider all the things that are necessary to keep the schools running, and then they proceed through the year on the basis of that budget. If the money they don't spend, say up to $1.5 million, comes back to the general fund, that's $1.5 million less that we have to tax the people for the following year. I think that the current system that requires careful planning and determination of what is necessary is preferable to a system that creates a discretionary fund that I know has to be approved by the council whenever they come up for it, but it does sequester funds that could be used by the town for other purposes. And I'd like to keep the Board of Education considering what is necessary, not what would be nice, and move forward on that basis.
Okay, we have Councilor Baumgartner, who's a first-time speaker, then we have people that wish to speak twice. I'm going to take other first-timers before we return, though. So we're going to Councilor Baumgartner right now, please. You got it?
General City, are there any restrictions on what money can be expended for? For example, I know one area the fund can be used for is unanticipated special education costs, certain capital projects, but are there any restrictions as to what the money cannot be spent on?
I haven't seen any specific restrictions. It does say educational expenses. Now, that perhaps could be something that, should the council design their policy, that they could set their own restrictions.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Getting attorney input to make sure there's no conflicts.
Yep.
Are there other councilors who haven't spoken yet that wish to speak? And if not, we'll go back to others who have already spoken. Okay, so we have Councilor Bordelon and then Franco.
Yes. So once again, my thought process was this is something that I had seen in other towns that have done, quite well with having this established. I think it also creates fiscal responsibility. As the Board of Ed applies for different funding and grants, and the money that we give them to meet the MBR also is included. I mean, let's be frank. In any town or state municipality, there's a burn period where you hear, even when we got money allocated from the state for Board of Ed, they had a certain time limit to spend the alliance money. Is that fiscal responsibility or are we spending? Now, I'm sure our town spent it responsibly, but the thought is you're not being penalized if there's a positive revenue back over to be able to put it in this fund to create a safe spot to keep it where it was allocated for, that we already budgeted for, and put that towards improving our infrastructure as far as sports fields and other things that could come down the pipeline. Also, with the state talks of looking to cut a lot of the funding to towns, if there is a positive revenue left over, once again, that would help us maybe to use some of that money towards their CIP request. And it's already kind of nicely situated in a spot that we can watch, and it encourages the Board of Ed and the town to work together in the sense where they might leave those funds in there longer so that we can work towards a common goal or bettering some aspect of our building, town, laptops, whatever that may be. But I think it creates fiscal responsibility because you're not burning money you're not being penalized or losing that money if you don't use it because you applied for other grants. Now that money can stay there and work towards, rebuilding our sports fields that are extremely outdated. And as we look at the CIPs that we have this year that are, I don't have the number in front of me this second, are quite high. Imagine if that count did have over the last several years an amount sitting in there that we could have allocated towards that. So that's where I'm at. I think we can create this to say whatever we want it to say, and if it doesn't work, we can always retract it and pull it back and allocate it back into the general fund. That's always an option. This is nothing permanent. It was something that obviously the state has set up in 2010, and it was supposed to be a benefit. And so I'm trying to look to see where those benefits are and look at other municipalities that are using it that have been successful with it and have seen positive return by doing such. And I just think it's important that if we allocate funds to the kids, and that's what the taxpayers put their money towards, and we encourage the Board of Ed to seek grants, that they're not penalized by receiving that, and then we can put them in a fund.
Thank you, Councilor Bordelon. Councilor Franco has another comment as well.
So I'm looking at my agenda here, and it states that there are some items to consider. So I'm reading in here that we could designate the fund can only be used for CIPs as a potential item. But my question is, can the next year we just use the same funds? Let's just say they had a savings unanticipated of 600,000. The next year, can we have them use that 600,000 to go back to their budget for that next year?
I don't see why not.
Well, it would just, any funds that they would return at year end would just go to the general fund. It's rare that we would designate that to be used. You would have to reserve fund balance to designate that to be used for the Board of Ed.
What I'm saying is, if the 600,000 that they had left over from one year is put into lapsing funds, the next year we do the budget, the town actually wants to fund them 600,000 below and have them use the remaining 600 from the previous year to make it up, to bring us back to MBR. Is that possible?
I don't believe so.
I don't think you can that, but if they had a CIP request, let's say they wanted 500,000 for new fields, you could say, well, you've got money there, we're not gonna do it out of CIP, but you're welcome to request to use that money out of that fund.
So it couldn't be used to actually bring them to MBR the next year?
No.
It had to be MBR plus that.
Right.
All right, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, I'd just like to interject at this point. We're really preliminary in this process. And the first thing I want to ask is if there's consensus that you would like to keep considering this. I'm going to unmute everybody. Is there any objection to us continuing to pursue this?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so Councilor Aubry and Councilor Zepari object to pursuing this any further. Is there anyone else who objects?
No, Councilor Aubry is not objecting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that. Okay. So is there consensus that you'd like to consider this further, not necessarily this evening, but would you like to proceed with this in further discussions at another meeting?
I don't object to following up.
This is Councilor Heat speaking.
Oh, sorry, Councilor Heat. I don't object to following up and learning more about it.
Does anyone object to following up?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Zepari objects to following up. I believe you're in the minority, sir.
Oh, I know.
So then what I would ask is the items to consider that Director Landry listed here. I'd like us all to go and think about these things over the next week or so. And perhaps Councilor Bordelon would receive those communications from us and you could compile them. Or do you prefer they go to, I think we're kind of,
Bless you.
Bless you. The finance director and the manager are a little bit busy. So I was wondering if Councilor Bordelon would be willing to receive the communications on this if councilors have comments.
I'd be willing to take that up, and I also would like to see maybe work on getting some other drafts of other people's towns' ordinances and to to have something else to look at as some examples of what, everyone has written as well.
That would be great if you could do that for us. All right, so then if anybody has their opinions on the items to consider, if you would just forward them to Councilor Bordelon and copy the manager so that he has it also, that way he's in the loop. Thank you, Councilor Bordelon, for taking that on. All right, thank you. Let's see, we are going to 2020-188, Neighborhood Assistance Act, and this is on page 33.
She's leaving right here.
And I believe, Councilor Franco, are we on you?
Yes.
Okay. The motion is on page 34, please.
Make a motion to recommend a resolution to schedule a public hearing and approve the proposal for each of the outlined projects under the 2020 Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Act. Shall I name them?
Yes, please.
Bill Memorial Library Proposal, Sacred Heart School Proposal, Housing Authority Proposal, Oddfellow Proposal, Avery Cop House Museum Proposal, Mystic River Homes Congregate Proposal. I so moved.
Second.
Second.
So moved by Franco and seconded by, I heard Heed, and Parker will go seconded by Heed. All right. So, Mr. Burt,
Well,
would you like to
I've
begin?
actually got Paige Bronk is here to present.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to, Madam Mayor,
I'm sorry. One moment, please. Everyone, I'm hearing multiple people talking, and I want to get everybody muted so I could hear the correct people. Okay,
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Burt, was that Councilor Zepari?
Yes.
that was
Yes.
talking?
And then followed by Aubry, Councilor Aubry.
Okay, Councilor Zepari and then Aubry.
I would like to disclose that I am a member of the advisory board for the Sacred Heart School. I don't think that should interfere with my ability to vote on the issue, but I am making the disclosure at this point.
Thank you. And on that note, I need to acknowledge that the minutes are wrong. I have since resigned my position on the Sacred Heart Advisory Board, so I am no longer a member of that board. Councilor Aubry?
I forgot.
If you want to make a note of it and then let us know, and we'll come back to you.
No, that's okay. I sneezed and it went away.
Oh, okay, thank you. Mr. Burt, you said Mr. Bronk is with us?
Yes, he's right next to me.
6 feet away, we hope.
Sure.
We're working on it. Just a summary, we actually bring these projects before the town council annually. We solicit applications to the state program for the Neighborhood Assistance Act. As a summary, the Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Act is a tax credit program designed to provide funding for municipal and tax-exempt organizations by providing a corporation business tax credit for businesses that make cash contributions to these entities. So in essence, community or nonprofit has a certain need, and businesses will front or contribute towards that project, and the state agrees to provide tax credits of various levels for certain projects. Case in point, an energy conservation program, a business would receive a 100% dollar-for-dollar tax benefit if it's for one of these community or nonprofit entities. Also, there are certain projects that would receive only 60%. I'll give you just a couple examples of projects that would be for 60%. It could be neighborhood assistance, rehabilitation of dwelling units, child daycare, certain housing projects are also included in that. So again, it ranges from a 60% credit to 100% credit. Years ago, we used to simply respond to submittals. We are proactive now in soliciting. So the requests that were read earlier are those who we've received for this year. And it is incumbent upon the council to endorse the submittal. Assuming they're all endorsed, they would be forwarded to the state. The maximum each project would be $150,000. So you'll note on at least one, case in point, the Groton Housing Authority, they have a request for $162,000. Of that, only $150,000 would be eligible for the credit. And then the last request through the Eastern Connecticut Housing Opportunities, ECHO, they're asking for $149,500, which is coming close to the $150,000 ceiling. So they're being smart in how they're going after some of the funds. This is a fairly large list. A couple of years ago, we only had one, maybe two. So we're actually thrilled that we have these. There is no cost to the town of Groton. These are projects, as I stated, that come to fruition as a result of state tax credits that are given to businesses who allocate the cash towards these specified projects. So we are requesting endorsement of the submittal and allowing us to move forward into the public hearing phase.
Thank you, Mr. Bronk. I was going to ask that very question, so I'm glad you stated it. This costs the people of Groton nothing. These are tax credits that businesses receive in offering these grants to the various nonprofits. Let's see, do we have any questions from any of the counselors? I'm not seeing any. Mr. Burt, do you see any questions?
I don't see any.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Bronk would like to add one thing on if possible.
Thank you.
I would just like to clarify something in the next steps. If you'll note, we had 5 steps. Ultimately, the submittal must be done by the July 1st deadline. Step 3 is envisioned to be the actual public hearing. What we're hoping is possibly that evening, that same evening, the town council could actually approve the applications. Notice number 4, it says Committee of the Whole, May 12th. That is actually an error. If we were unable to actually have the approval on May 5th, we would need some approval sometime after that, either later in May or in June, in order to meet the July 1st deadline.
Okay, so then this isn't necessarily an error in the next steps, but you need to have, so we definitely need to meet that May 12th deadline. Does this go to the RTM? This doesn't have to go to the RTM, correct?
No.
Okay, so then if we follow this set of steps and we hold the public hearing on the 5th of May, Committee of the Whole on the 12th, it would be done at our June meeting. And that seems like it would meet the deadline. Is that correct?
That is fine.
Okay. Very good. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something. Are there any counselors who have anything they wanted to add? I don't see any. All right, so let me unmute everybody. Everybody's unmuted. We are voting on 2020-188, 2020 Neighborhood Assistance Act. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bronk.
Thank you.
And you're staying for the next one. And he will be here for the next item too.
Very good.
What happened to my?
We are on
Page 102, the Affordable Housing Plan Grant, 2020-189.
Hold on. Okay, I think someone said something. I'm not quite ready yet. Give me 1 second, please. We are on 2020-189 Affordable Housing Plan Grant. This is on page 102. And is this Counselor Heed?
Motion to recommend, I'll make a motion to recommend a resolution authorizing the town manager execute all grant documents and accept grant funding for the Affordable Housing Plan Technical Assistance Grant. I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Heed, seconded by Zepari. And Mr. Bronk is with us again to introduce this item.
Sure. It's a fairly simple request. We were made aware of a state grant funding opportunity pertaining to the development of an affordable housing plan. It's been a number of years since we developed such a plan, and there is limited funding at the state level for such programming. There's only $500,000 for all 169 municipalities, and it is issued on a first come, first served basis. According to my calculations, if all 169 municipalities were granted $15,000, that equates to roughly 2.5 million. So there's not enough grant funding for all municipalities. We are anxious to actually get in the pipeline to try to get the funding. To clarify, Groton has roughly 21% of its housing stock classified as affordable. So we're not necessarily looking to target adding significant numbers of new units that would be deed-restricted units or subsidized units. But it is important to understand our existing affordable housing stock, focus on rehabilitation, how we can upgrade, and how we can mix new units within new developments. So that is something that we're definitely focused on, and as I stated, we don't really have an active modern plan. It's something we could use. $15,000 would help us in developing that plan, and we would find it of great value.
Thank you, Mr. Bronk. Mr. Burt, did you want to add anything before we go to the council?
No, nothing.
I see Councilor Bordelon would like to speak.
Thank you. I think this is a great opportunity, and I'm glad we're thinking of this as we continue to build new infrastructure in the town with all these new different developments coming in. It's important that we realize that from what I've heard in this town, or just from being here, that we have a shortage of affordable housing, and affordable housing that's not designated senior housing, but housing that seniors could afford, as well as people on fixed incomes, and having that kind of mixed-use community as well, and the ability to live in affordable housing that's up to date and up to code, and has all of the proper channels in it. So I think it's important, and I think we really, as a town, I feel we have a shortage of affordable housing here. And so I think this is great, and I hope hopefully it helps some of the housing. My one question, I forget the name of the complex down by the Groton Ambulance, Pequannock.
Grassland Gardens?
Yes, is that, would that be, is that something that is in our jurisdiction to, if a plan was in place, to apply for money and get approval to upgrade those units?
Mr. Bronk?
Yes, it is. And actually, I think that's quite a possibility in the future. The plan would not necessarily provide that level of detail as to exactly where it would happen. I think there would be a discussion of options, opportunities per se, but we do have CDBG funding. We have provided such funding in the past to the Groton Housing Authority. Over the past couple of years, we have focused on Mystic River Homes, but I think in the future, that would be something that we want to look at.
Thank you, because I know from constituents in the town that they feel the need there for updating and getting things to be up to code and remodeled there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bordelon. Mr. Byrd, I'm not seeing any other councilors. Does Councilor Zapari wish to speak?
I have a question.
Councilor Aubrey?
Yes, is this money did you say go towards a study?
The funding would be for an affordable housing plan. It's only $15,000 to come up with a plan.
Okay, I would suggest calling it workforce housing. I think, the other is a name that needs to go away. Just a suggestion. I don't know if you can do that or not. But I'm just wondering how much the Navy study went into this same subject. The Navy housing study that was done.
I think the joint land use study, JLUS?
Yes, that would be the JLUS study.
Right.
I think there is data that within the JLUS study that would be helpful. However, the JLUS study wasn't focused on affordable housing or workforce housing. It was more focused on the availability of housing stock in terms of total numbers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Aubrey. I'm not seeing any other requests to speak at this point. Mr. Byrd, are you seeing anyone over there? No?
I haven't seen anything.
Alrighty. We will vote on 2020-189 Affordable Housing Plan Grant. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes unanimously, 9-0-0. Thank you, Mr. Brock.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Heed, for reminding, I forgot to unmute everybody, so thank you very much. All right, we are on to 2020-187 Menstrual Hygiene Product Ordinance, and this is a request from Councilor Baumgartner, so I'm going to let this go directly to Councilor Baumgartner to introduce this area that he has a desire for us to discuss. And I think you're unmuted and ready to go, Councilor Baumgartner. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So several weeks ago, before COVID-19 took over all of our lives, there was a bill for discussion at the state capitol with respect to mandating that public schools, specifically middle schools and high schools, provide free sanitary products, or some call it hygiene products, tampons or pads, to women, young women, free of charge. And that bill has made its way through the Public Health Committee. It was voted out of the Public Health Committee. Actually, one of our state reps, Chris Conley, is a co-sponsor of the bill, SB 140, which would require, again, that menstrual hygiene products are offered in middle and high school bathrooms. Now, the reality is many women throughout the United States, certainly this state and our own town, experience financial hardship. And one cannot assume that folks walking into our senior centers, libraries, community centers, our town halls, and our schools don't experience period poverty. The inability to pay for sanitary products and have safe products at their disposal, and once every month. And so I believe it is in the town's best interest and would behoove the town to, in every public facility, every public restroom, it would behoove the town to offer free menstrual hygiene products in our town facilities, free of charge, similar to what we do with toilet paper. Imagine having to go to the restroom and needing to pay between 50 cents or $1 just to use some toilet paper. The reality is, women, it is not a choice. For women, it is not a choice. And we should recognize it as a necessary sanitary need and a necessary public health need. So again, I can't overstate that this town has a very diverse population, and many of the folks who work in our town, I believe well over 50% of our workforce is women, and women are increasingly becoming working in every facet of town government and our schools, and so it's incredibly important that we, in my eye, provide free sanitary products in our bathrooms. And I would just like to thank Representative Conley for co-sponsoring a bill to mandate schools to provide menstrual hygiene products. In my eye, we shouldn't even need to be mandated to do it. We ought to be doing it, not just in our schools, but all of our public facilities. Town Manager Burt was nice enough to do some research on some municipalities that have passed similar ordinances. In our conversations, I brought up Brookline, Massachusetts, and he was kind enough to reach out to the town of Brookline, Massachusetts regarding their ordinance. And so they're, in my eye, that would be the most suitable sort of draft ordinance that we ought to look at if we were to adopt an ordinance here in this town. But again, I cannot overstate how important it is to end the stigma, and really combat this pervasive stigma surrounding menstruation. There truly is no cost to normalizing
Thank you.
And, for financially challenged families, many people don't realize, for folks who are struggling to make ends meet, these products are not provided by WIC or SNAP. And so I hope to have this conversation with the council and earn support, to support our mothers and sisters. With that, I will yield the floor and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Councilor Baumgartner. So I have two councilors who have raised their hands, and I'm not sure, Mr. Burt, do you have people there that also, Councilor Zepari or Aubrey, wish to speak?
Yeah, he'd like to. Wait. He'll wait, though. Yeah, add him to the list eventually.
Okay. Councilor Parker, let me just, Councilor Parker has the floor, I believe. Are you good? Councilor Parker? Councilor Parker?
Sorry about that. It ended up muted on my other phone, on the phone.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
All right. You have the floor?
Yes. I understand what you're proposing, but there are available in the nurse's office. As a student, when I went to school, they had them available in the nurse's office. As my daughters were going through the school, or currently going through the school, they can go to the nurse's office. And a lot of their friends normally have something that are carried. My concern would be that we would be providing for each of the public buildings. Does that mean we have to put it within our budget? How much is it going to cost us? If the person doesn't have any money to put the 50 cents, what used to be a quarter, or 50 cents in the slot, who's going to be refilling it? Are we going to keep supplying it? We have to supply both sides, not just sanitary napkins. We would have to use the other ones too. So I just don't want the tax burden to be on the people, because then we have to figure out how we put it in the budget. Most women carry some, and if they can't carry some, they have friends who probably may have some. That's just my point of view. I just don't think we should be doing it for all public buildings. And especially the schools, they already have them in the nurse's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Parker. We have quite a few people that wish to speak. Councilor Heed is next.
All right, thank you, Mayor Granatowski. As I understand it, the state proposal is to require local and regional boards of education to provide free feminine hygiene products in middle and high school student bathrooms. So basically, the state identified a specific problem, and that is young girls don't have the products on hand or are too ashamed to ask the school nurse. So they came up with a specific solution to require schools to provide these products free of charge. However, to my knowledge, there is no guarantee that there will be funding for this. So it could end up being another sort of, I don't want to call it this, but an unfunded mandate. And I just want to, remind everyone that, since the 1980s, there's been cuts to federal and state aid to municipalities. So the end result is, that your property taxes can go up as the federal and state governments keep, shifting expenses to the town. So I think we just need to be really vigilant as to what we add to the budget, because once you add something, I think sometimes it's hard to take it out. So the proposal tonight is to pass an ordinance requiring the town to provide these products free of charge in public restrooms, including the library, senior center, community center, town hall, and schools. So I called one of the libraries, Bill Memorial. They used to do this, and the problem they had was that the products would be there, they'd be there, then somebody would use the bathroom and all of them would disappear all at once. The senior center, I talked to the senior center, and that's not really a problem that they have. They have accommodations for other people. So the rest of it is community center, town halls, and schools. I think the state is taking care of the schools. But town hall and community center, again, we likely won't have people going in there unless people with need, maybe they do, but it should be kept behind the counter. I'm concerned that what we do is we put it into these buildings, and one person walks in who may not even be from the town of Groton. They may not need them. They may be able to afford their own, but then they just walk in and take all of them. I think, I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea because of that reason. And then in addition, when you go to pass, at least in a school, it's targeted to the kids. It's in the kids' bathrooms. Maybe there's possibility that they'll all walk out at the same time, but at least it solves that specific problem. That's kind of all, except I'm not sure that this is something that should be an ordinance unless it's requiring all public bathrooms, including private businesses, to accommodate it. Because I don't know why you would pass an ordinance that says the town needs to enforce an ordinance against the town. It just seems to me we'd be policing the town and fining the town for violating their own ordinance. So I'm not sure if that would be better discussed as a policy or an ordinance. And I guess that's all. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Heed. We have quite a few people that wish to speak. I believe we'll go back to Councilor Zepari at this point.
Councilor Parker and Councilor Heed have expressed my concerns, so I'll save you some time.
Thank you, Councilor Zepari. We have Bordelon, Franco, and then back to Councilor Baumgardner for responses. So Councilor Bordelon, you're up. You have the floor, please.
I think this is such a controversial issue, and it is an issue that people are faced with. I guess my thoughts are, if the school doesn't pass it, then I do agree with Councilor Parker. They are provided at the school, but one then has to travel from whatever part of the building they're in and make it all the way to wherever the nurse's office is, if they can get there. So it does provide a bit of a embarrassing moment or situation as such, to not have it on hand, because we all forget things. We're not putting toilet paper in our purses and then be prepared for that the public restroom doesn't have it provided. So I definitely can see in the high school level, but then one would start to venture in on the middle school level. Well, working from the medical field, women menstruate in 5th grade sometimes. So now are you going to eliminate those kids? So it would have to cover, preteens as well. As far as the town facilities, once again, I would entertain anything to see what the numbers look like. I don't know if any information has come of what the cost would be to do such a thing, or have it maybe in the bathrooms. I think a start is having them in the bathrooms at least accessible, even if you had to pay. Let's be frank, when you look at some of these restrooms now, they're not even there. So I think the first step, and I'm not sure how this needs to be, but I think providing the ability to grab the product as needed, even for a quarter or whatever it may be, that would curb the snatch and grab complaint or concern that we have here. Having it at least in a machine that's accessible and affordable, so that it's stocked and then the person could access it, even on the high school level. And then if a student needed it, they could still go to the nurse's office. So I'm not sure if, and once again, I have to do more research. I'm not sure how one would institute getting those machines in there and having them accessible. And do we have any in our town currently?
We don't, but I do have some tentative costs run by Public Works if you want, whenever people are ready.
So,
Yeah.
And those costs are including putting in a machine with a little bit of a revenue coming in as far as?
It was not priced out for revenue, no. It was just priced out for the request.
And is that including the machine for dispensing, or this is just putting them out in the bathroom?
It would be a machine. If you're ready for me, Mayor?
Yes, please, Mr. Burt.
Okay, in terms of the town public, this is not the schools. This is just for the town facilities and not the seasonal ones like Escort Point Beach. This is the regular full-year town facilities. There's a total of 16 public women's restrooms in those facilities. To install the equipment, the dispenser and waste receptacle, it's a little over $11,000 for the initial capital outlay. And then depending if we had, we don't have janitorial, but we'd have Blackburn fill it, so we could either do it overnight or else once a week, depending on how often they were used. So if you only did it once a week, it would be $7,200 a year. If you had to do it each of the days for those facilities, it'd be a max of $36,000 per year.
Could you repeat that one more time, please? It would be 11 for the equipment and
Right.
then
$7,200 at a minimum if you did it once, if you filled them once per week. If you had to fill them all every night, which is unlikely that every spot would be hit like that, but just as a worst case scenario, it'd be $36,000 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we have several other counselors who wish to speak. Counselor Franco was next, and then Counselor Melendez has not spoken on the issue either. So let me get Counselor Franco unmuted. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. I think it's wonderful to help girls and women. I think the state is working on something within the schools, and my personal opinion is we'll watch what they would like to come out with as the recommendations. My thing is, I would rather it not be an ordinance, but rather a policy. And maybe we could take this as a policy across our town, but maybe we should try some things first. I'm not sure exactly where all these 16 restrooms are across what facilities, and
that would include the town hall annex, library, senior center, human services, community center, police station, and for the public restroom there, and the clubhouse, golf course clubhouse.
And let me ask you, the police, well,
we get quite a few people come in the lobby.
Okay, I'm just wondering if there's certain
Sorry, go ahead.
Facilities that may not need it or have so much traffic at all, but for this type of service. But is there a possibility that I wouldn't mind having a further discussion on this, because I don't think we're voting tonight on an actual ordinance, but I wouldn't mind having a further discussion on this to have possibly the machines in the restrooms for maybe a nominal fee, or even having machine in there so that somebody has to actually crank it to get something out, even if it is free. Because I think if you leave a bowl of them or a tray of them on it, they just, like you're saying, they might get taken. I don't know, but Anyway, I wouldn't mind having a further discussion, but I am concerned about maybe some of the funding as well, and what the need actually is, and how much would be used. And that's why I'm thinking maybe we can do a test study somewhere. That's my opinion. And thank you, Councilor Baumgartner, for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councilor Franco. Councilor Melendez has not spoken yet, so we're going to go to Councilor Melendez next.
Thank you. Addressing the problem of someone just taking, the whole supply. I think we could have it where it's behind a quarter paywall, but then have a sign on the unit, letting people know that they can request a quarter from the front desk of the library or something, so that they can get it free of charge. That way they're just requesting a quarter. There's no stigma. And that way no one could actually take all of it. And people who can afford it can pay it, and people who can't can get it.
Thank you, Councilor Melendez. Councilor Baumgartner wanted to speak again, and Councilor Heed. We'll go to Councilor Baumgartner next, please.
Well, I appreciate everyone's perspective on the issue, and appreciate many of your willingness to consider passing this ordinance, or maybe looking to an alternative to address some specific concerns. The reality is, when you use the restroom, you do not go to the nurse's office to get toilet paper. You go to the bathroom and you get your toilet paper. If it isn't provided for you, then you go to the next stall and there should be toilet paper there. We should apply that same logic to sanitary products for folks going through menstruation. Additionally, we should not be discriminating as to whether somebody is financially struggling financially, or has the capacity to pay for tampons at a drugstore. If you are in urgent need and you need a sanitary napkin or a tampon, you should be able to go into a public facility and use that product without, again, having to go to a nurse and then going through an onerous process of having to wait and making your case and telling a nurse that you're going through that issue. We need to, again, end the stigma of it. And I obviously cannot speak from experience, but I know that I am not going to be an individual who can dictate how a woman must deal with her her health needs. So it's important that I think we should support it. At, $7,200 at the low, I think, is a drop in the bucket. What Councilor Franco stated with respect to certain areas or bathrooms in town perhaps having a higher need than others, we ought to explore that as well. And I appreciate her comments on that, because obviously there would be some areas in town that would have more foot traffic, but we have to treat, again, menstruation as just an everyday public occurrence, and we should, in my eye, provide the same level of assistance to that as we do with people needing to use toilet paper when they go to the bathroom.
Hey, Councilor Aubry wished to speak.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. I was wondering, did we talk with the Board of Education about what they in fact do, since they're responsible for the schools? And the other question was, did we look into vendors? I mean, there's vendors out there for everything in the world if they're going to make a little money off it, and it might make it a whole lot easier if they were allowed to supply the machines product, and then the monies that they got were what paid them for doing the service?
Can I answer?
Yes, Mr.
I've not touched base with the school. My understanding is they only do it out of the nurse's office. I don't know what their plans are, and they may say, yeah, we think it's a great idea if you ask. In terms of vendors, what was proposed is free. So no, we know what the machines cost generally, and the products are 18 cents each for what we can get it at. But we've not looked at a revenue type situation.
Right. Well, I think we might analyze it as to what our cost is going to be for the machines and then for the supplies. And I think it's worth taking a look at somebody else being responsible for it in the public bathrooms. But just a thought as we're putting together more information on it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that we do need to do as a service, but I don't necessarily, I don't know any place you go that it's free. So I think we could look at maybe what a vendor would want to charge if they were to put them in and take on the responsibility.
Okay, I wanted to speak at this point, then we have other people that wish to speak a third time. So I am in agreement with several counselors in that I don't think an ordinance is a good idea. I think this would be better served as a policy that the town would decide to take on. So I'm not opposed to it in that regard, but I do not want to see an ordinance at this point. So as far as the policy, I'm interested in the cost. I think the schools, every school I've attended and every school I've ever taught in has feminine hygiene products available in the nurse's office. And the girls all know that they just need to ask to head down to the nurse, and the nurses are very kind and considerate, and they help them out whenever they need to. I would be willing, though, to look further into this if Councilor Baumgartner would be willing to do some more research for us to answer some of these questions and maybe figure out, as Councilor Franco has indicated, maybe doing a test run, maybe the library or something like that would be a good place because you have a lot of younger kids there that, might be in need. And as far as the 7,200, that is for the dispensers or that is for the product, Mr. Bird?
Product. It's a one-time cost for the dispensers of the approximately 11,000.
So we'd be looking at an upfront cost of about 18,000 to get this started in 16 restrooms in the town.
Right, but a trial might be a good way to start.
A trial might be a good way. Okay, so that's all that I had on that. We have Councilor Bordelon and Councilor Baumgartner.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed something in my report. I was wrong, I totally missed a line in there. These dispensers can be set at free 25 cents or 50 cents. Sorry about that. I didn't realize Greg had put that in there.
Oh, so then you could have the dispenser set, somebody mentioned it here and they used the term, you'd have to crank the handle and not necessarily put cash into it. So, but at least you'd have to be making the motion rather than just having them sitting out on a tray.
Correct. Sorry about that.
That's fine. That's all I have at this point. So we're going to go back into the queue, and we have Bordelon, Baumgartner, and I believe Heed. So,
Thank you. I think some great points were brought up tonight, and I do like Councilor Melendez's point where if the machine was not able to be free, you're kind of in a bind and you're at the senior center after an aerobics class, you could go, not everyone carries change anymore either. That's another problem. And so having that there to be able to go and use that, I think it's a starting point. I'm not looking to see us lose revenues or whatever. I think Councilor Aubry brought up a great point as well with looking at vendors. A vendor probably would take on this responsibility and it wouldn't maybe cost us anything to do. By having it accessible. I think the big key, or what I want to take from this, is the accessibility. And if I have to pay for it, at least the accessibilities and the options there for me, because there's not a nurse's office at the senior center, or if you're there for a gym class, and there's not that at the youth center. But also looking at downtown Mystic with those bathrooms also John, be included, those restrooms on
Those
the
are not
ground?
our restrooms.
Oh, they're not ours,
No.
okay. No, yeah, just having the cost be there, you know, it would be just having, I would like the right to purchase one if one would need it. And without it being a complete cost to the town. The accessibility part would be a start, and then we can look at how to move it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Borderline. Councilor Baumgartner wish to speak again.
Yes. I'd like to read the town of Brookline, Massachusetts' ordinance on this issue, menstrual hygiene products access bylaw, and this is in their code of ordinances. And so it goes as follows. Section 8.37.2, access to menstrual hygiene products. The town of Brookline shall make available and accessible at no charge menstrual hygiene products, tampons and pads / sanitary napkins in its public building restrooms that serve female-bodied members of the public. Section 8.37.3, manner of dispensing. Machine dispensers for menstrual hygiene products provided under this bylaw shall be chosen in consultation with the building department and the Department of Public Health, but must comply with ADA and other equity of access laws and considerations. Menstrual hygiene products made available at no charge from an employee, office, or other site in a public building upon in-person request does not constitute compliance with this bylaw. Section 8.37.4, green products, tampons with plastic applicators may not be provided under this bylaw. So the language isn't very onerous. It is not restrictive other than that tampons provided in those public restrooms ought not to have plastic on it, which is in line with, I think, our goals that we've set out with in passing the plastics reduction ordinance. And so if we truly as a town prioritize this issue, I think it would behoove the town to codify that that policy within our ordinance so that in future years, if there were to be a town council that may not agree with that policy, they may not be able to simply strike it by virtue of a line item reduction that come budget season. So again, by codifying it into our ordinance, this policy, it would tell the public that we emphatically support this policy, not just for the long haul, but in perpetuity. Thank you.
Can I point out one thing real quick? I just, in terms of the costs, I do not know if Greg, had priced out the no plastic, so I would want to double check on that for costs.
Councilor Heed is next.
I just wanted to clarify, is this including all businesses or just town buildings? And then I guess the second thing is based on the conversation that's going on, as long as a vendor puts a machine in the bathroom and there's a fee attached to it, I don't think there should be another expense on the town taxpayer. I don't, yeah, that's all. So if you could clarify that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
And who are you looking to clarify that, Councilor Heed? Are you looking for Councilor Baumgartner to respond?
Councilor Baumgartner, because it was the proposal.
Yes, this would only apply to public restrooms. So restrooms in the community center, library, town halls. And to answer your second question, can you explain that a little bit?
Oh, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Me too.
Yeah, Councilor Heed, you kind of cut out with the second question. Could you repeat it again?
That would.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
He needs to be unmuted.
Oh, sorry. How about now?
Yeah.
Okay. If we put a vending machine in the bathroom, that probably is an okay resolution. But just as long as my internet connection is unstable, that's the message I'm getting. Yeah. If we go in the direction of charging, that would be my only concern.
No, I'm not pushing. In fact, I did not know that sanitary products are not already offered by charge in women's restrooms. I assumed that was the case. So that was news to me just in this meeting, that even in town hall, I assume they're not there. I'm not advocating that any woman be charged, or female body person be charged. I'm advocating that that product would be provided in public restrooms within public facilities.
And Counselor He, did that answer your question?
The first part answered my question. The second part, we will politely respectfully disagree with each other. That's all.
Thank you. Counselor Franco, wish to speak?
Yes. Going forward, I wouldn't have a problem, like I had stated, with trying a test site, trying somewhere that has a lot of traffic. Let's see how the library may work. Let's do it maybe starting with maybe the nominal fee of $0.25, or we start with a free and see how that goes. We go one way or another and see how things go. I personally think a nominal fee of $0.25 just to cover the cost is not excessive, and it's extremely affordable. And I think you brought up the town of Brookfield, and I had looked at Brookfield, and they have a household medium income of about $113,000. Our town has a medium income of, last I looked of this website very quickly, was about $56,000. So we're asking taxpayers in our town to take care of people, and it's another expense on them. And they have talked to us about this, and they have made it very clear that they would like to see things and taxes go down or to maintain, which I'm trying, we all, at least I can only speak for myself, that we are trying to do this, or at least I'm trying to do this without anything excessive. Not saying this is an excessive request, but I also don't think somebody having to pay $0.25 is excessive either. The spending of the money to put these machines in the restroom, I think I could back, because I think accessibility is huge, because there's nothing worse than being caught without something and you need it in this type of situation. And so I would say having accessibility in these restrooms would be, especially, I mean, at the library, they don't have this already. I'm very surprised. And because you're having a lot of the public come in there. So, like I said, I would definitely be willing to go forward with a trial of something and start there. But I respect everything you're doing, Andre, and thank you for thinking of us girls and ladies. Thank you.
Counselor Parker?
John,
Mm-hmm.
can you check on something for me? Because obviously those tampons nor sanitary napkins can go down, cannot be flushed.
Right.
You're going to have some type of container on the side so they can put that in. Two, who's going to be emptying those? Because not all the public buildings have people emptying. They have their own custodial services. Will they be taking that on? So is that going to be an additional cost because it has to be a separate container?
It is.
Because
That's
it's like
part of
older.
That's part of the price, is the product dispenser and the waste receptacle and bags for
Okay.
the waste receptacle. We would have Blackburn do it. They could charge us a little bit more to do it, but I'm not anticipating that would be much, if any.
Right. So I see it rising more and more because production-wise, we would have to buy in bulk if we did it not having a vendor. Correct? Or if I'm thinking correctly, it's going to go, eventually each year goes up in price. So I respectfully disagree on how this would go about. I don't see us putting it as an ordinance or a policy. As a woman, and a woman who has two young women, they have friends. They have the option of the nurse's office. Most women, an incident, have asked a stranger to see if they had any. And of course they had some, because I didn't have any on me. Just FYI, sorry, too much information. But that's being neighborly. So I don't understand why the town has to have the burden of making sure that's out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Parker. Councilor Bordelon is next.
Yes, it's our responsibility to provide, with all due respect, and I hear what Councilor Parker says. You're supposed to have the trash receptacle in each stall anyway in a women's bathroom, despite if you're agreeing to have them available to purchase, because women come into the restrooms with their own and need to dispose. So those receptacles usually are already in place in little trash receptacles in the stall, to my understanding. But now I'm wondering, do we not have them in the town?
I don't believe
Stall?
each stall has a receptacle, and these prices are for one dispenser and one receptacle in each bathroom.
Right. So I guess where I would like to start is kind of maybe to reel this back in my mind. I think the first step, and it was one of the concerns that happened at the football game that I noticed. As a woman does not want to carry it out of their stall to the trash can, and that's unsanitary. And so the high school games, I brought that to the attention, and they put receptacles in the stall themselves. So that would be the first stop. Despite if we should supply them, have them through a vendor or whatever, we need to have trash receptacles for sanitation purposes in the bathroom. That way they're clearly marked because of the being bodily fluids that can cause and transmit disease. You do not want a child, people should know that receptacle's for that. And so when it's removed, it's handled with care. So I guess digging a little deeper here, I feel we should move towards making sure we have those receptacles in place if we purchase these or vendor them or whatever. That's a privacy issue for women to have to walk out of a stall with something in their hand to drop the trash. So that would be something I would love some information back on. Thank you.
Okay, so everyone, I believe, who wanted to speak has spoken. So right now, we don't have any motion on the floor, and this was just the initial discussion. It sounds like there is some interest in looking into this further, but I don't know that we're prepared to act on this now. I would wonder if you would want to hold off until budget is done and then take this up again. Councilor Baumgartner, do you have any objection to keeping this on hold until budget is set, especially given the circumstances with our public health emergency?
No, absolutely. Part of the reason why I didn't want to have this discussion before budget season was in the case that this were to, an ordinance were to be approved in the next few weeks, that it would perhaps be included in this upcoming budget cycle. Obviously, some of the estimates John had roughly, at least $18,000. And obviously we're going to be having to make many tough decisions with respect to how we're going to be spending our money, or the CIP budget, and obviously operating budget, that we have many items on the horizon. I think we should be having this conversation, as soon as possible. If I've heard from a lot of folks that they, do not support an ordinance, I'd still like to move forward with, drafting an ordinance, that we can review and refine, and folks can perhaps have some input on, and using the Brookline, Massachusetts ordinance as a model ordinance for our council. But in terms of the schedule, or for how we move forward with this, it's entirely up to the council in terms of how they would like to move forward with that. But obviously, I'd like to discuss it kind of concurrently with the budget cycle, in the case that include funding for for the upfront costs of providing the receptacles in restrooms, so that the sanitary products can go in them after the fiscal year possible. But entirely up to the council.
Thank you, Councilor Baumgartner. Mr. Burt?
Yes.
could not get an ordinance through this quickly. I don't
No,
believe.
it would take several months for an ordinance, but you could price, you could amend the public works budget to put some preliminary costs in there just to get receptacles going and some of that, if you were interested.
So I would like to ask if Councilor Baumgartner would be willing to draft an ordinance for the town and bring it back to us at maybe our next committee of the whole, and we could take a look at that.
I would like, before it would be presented, I'd want the attorneys to look at it just to, unless it's just dead on what the other, the laws do differ from state to state, but before you get too far into it, we should make sure that everything's kosher.
Right.
John, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
Councilor Baumgartner, go ahead.
John, it's unlikely that the language would change at all from what was provided.
It looks pretty simple, yeah. That's fine.
I want to share that with town attorneys. That'd be great.
Okay.
So if there's no objection, let me unmute everybody. If there's no objection, then Councilor Baumgartner will draft an ordinance regarding his referral and bring it back to us for further consideration, at which point we can actually, I don't think we've seen the text of the ordinance, so that'll be new for all of us to take a look at. And I'm assuming we'll have at least one more discussion of this in committee of the whole, because I know several of us have stated we're not prepared to move forward with an ordinance, but I would like to give Councilor Baumgartner the opportunity to at least present it to us. Is there any objection to Councilor Baumgartner doing the legwork on this and bringing back an ordinance to us that we can again discuss in COW?
Nay.
Okay, I hear
Council
no
Parker.
I hear no objection.
Really?
I'm sorry, Councilor Parker, go ahead.
Yep. I'm going to abstain. I do not agree with it. So it's a majority rules, but I really want to say no.
Right. We're not looking for a vote tonight, and I don't necessarily agree with an ordinance either, and a couple other councilors don't, but I would like to give Councilor Baumgartner the chance to bring this back up for further discussion, because I don't think we're prepared to work on this tonight. Is that acceptable?
Further discussion, further research, I have no objection to. I still don't think it should be an ordinance, that's all.
Agreed. Councilor Bordelon is raising her hand.
Yes, I have no objections. I just was wondering, though, despite the ordinance or not, I do feel it's important that we put the trash receptacles into individual stalls, and that would be a one-time cost and something that should already be in place.
So I heard a ding. I'm not sure where that came from. Is that someone raising their hand that I'm not seeing?
I think it's something on Councilor Aubry's end from what I could tell, but I don't think she was doing anything.
Okay.
No, I'm just sitting here. I was looking around too.
Okay.
So
Maybe my place is on fire.
So is that something we can get a cost on and just have the trash receptacles to
Sure.
work towards trying to put those in implemented?
Yeah, that's real easy.
Okay, so then we're going to count on Councilor Baumgartner to bring back an ordinance at a COW in the future. I am certainly willing to look at this further, but our priorities right now, especially given the circumstances, are to get our budget done. And I would prefer to take care of all our budgeting first and then come back to anything else, any new items after the budget is done. But that would be, I think we're all okay with advancing this for further discussion. I understand people are opposed to the ordinance, but we'll have a chance to discuss, argue, and vote against if we so choose. Okay, so Councilor Bordelon, I don't know if you raised your hand again or if that's left over.
I just wanted to say, I mean, just for full disclosure, like for the public's knowledge, I just wanted to state that when the councilor asked to have an agenda item put on the agenda, just kind of like, just because some people might not understand the process, that this was way before the COVID-19. So as it sits here on the agenda, it wasn't something that was targeted for tonight that just came up in the last week. the items that are on this agenda have been thought out, and some of our items that we asked for take several weeks to get on because of other important town business. So I just wanted, for full disclosure, for the community to understand that this wasn't something that was targeted to be on with the current state. This is something that was placed on way before and had been thought out, I don't even know how many weeks ago. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, so we are on to item 6, review of agenda items. I don't have anything for this, Mr. Burt, do you?
I do not.
Other business, are there any counselors with other business? I am not seeing any, Mr. Burt, are you seeing any on your end?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to express before we adjourn, please, to encourage the town to keep following the public health directives, stay at home as much as you can, social distance when you can, listen to the science, and take your advice from the town of Groton Police Department.
Councilor Baumgartner has a question or a statement.
Yep, and so do I. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
So I just want to encourage the public to keep on doing the right things, and we need to try to flatten the curve, and please just listen to the scientist. Councilor Baumgartner.
Oh, he needs to be unmuted.
Yes, Mayor Granatowski, I was pointing to the flatten the curve on behind me on my virtual background.
I see that.
We can save lives. And young people, you are not immune to this virus. Seeing so many young people down in Florida enjoying the beaches so close to one another is absolutely shocking. And so stay home if you can, and stay vigilant, and remember that there are many seniors who are vulnerable to this very, very deadly virus, as are folks with weaker, quite frankly, healthy people can become very, very ill from this virus. So I just really can't stress that enough to young people to heed the advice of our scientists, as Mayor Granatowski stated, because pulling together and following those guidelines will be able to do this. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Councilor Franco raised her hand.
I'm unmuted. Okay. I wanted to speak before, but I don't think anybody had noticed. I had put a note in there. So I wanted to request from John Burt that I have not received the request for estimated future debt service from our last meeting from Cindy Landry. And I know you guys have been extremely busy, and I understand, but can we put that in again, just
Sure.
to see what percentage is expected in the future as well? And can you give me an update on what is going on with the property at the Quantic Bridge Volunteer Firehouse?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to have much until we have the appraisal, though.
But my question was, and this is what we didn't have any answers on, is what was in the town land records right now? How is it?
It's part of the main, it's all combined in with the main bigger lot.
So even though, let me just, so even though we had, it was going to revert back to the town, we have not, as the town, done the proper paperwork to revert it back to the town. Is that correct?
That's correct. Well, it might be in process now, I'd have to check, but as of last meeting, it was not.
All right. Thank you very much.
Can I comment on that? When there
Councilor
is,
Zafari wishes to speak.
yes, when there is a reversion, the town does not have to do anything. If the condition of the initial grant is not made, and it's the type of grant that has a right of reversion, then the reversion is automatic. The town does not need to do a thing. It automatically owns the land. And that's just a matter of law. I think Attorney Cody tried to explain that to us when he was here before, and it's something that every law student learns in property.
Councilor Franco had a follow-up, I believe.
So that may be what it is, but it was sold and it's in somebody's mortgage paperwork that they are owners of that land currently. So there is some kind of discrepancy. And I really don't think this is the time we're supposed to be debating this or
That's
having
correct.
a discussion about this as well.
I'll get
So
an
thank you.
I'll get an update.
Thank you. Counselor Heed raised his hand, I believe.
Yes, I just wanted to share with everyone that I did walk the property last week, and it sounded from the description that was presented to us that on one side is the firehouse in the parking lot, on the other side is the what's that called? The boardwalk. There's actually no boardwalk, and I mean there's a boardwalk, but it's separated. This property, to get to it, you have to go over the firehouse property. There's no access from any other way, so you have to trespass to get to it. And on the other side of it is the water, basically the bay. It's like a flood zone, so there are all the reeds. Then beyond that is the boardwalk, which you access on the other side of the neighboring building, over by where the gazebo is located. That's where you access.
All right, I need to interrupt because we should not be having discussion on this item right now. Counselor Franco asked a question for information, and because it's not on the agenda, we should not be discussing it at this point. Counselor Bordelon, do you have a question for Mr. Burt or a simple statement you would like to make?
Yeah, I was going to jump in on that train of talking about it, but because it just started going, but obviously I'm not going to. But,
Thank you. I would appreciate
that's how you easily can jump on. It happens, folks. No,
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to also just send again, please stay safe and all the medical professional, that are going out into harm's way frontline every day. And I also want to say, despite all the stuff that's being said, I have a friend, and I'm not going to disclose her name. They're not in our town, but she's 39 years old, and she's positive for the coronavirus, and her whole family has been sick, and she has no pre-existing medical conditions. She's 39 years old and is a nurse, and wasn't even working in the last 2 weeks, was away. So just what I'm trying to say, they're saying 65 and older and all that. You don't have to be immune compromised. You can just be the right person at the right time, and it can affect you much differently than others. She's currently hospitalized. She has fluid on the lungs, and she's number 3 in her town that has become positive. So please listen to the precautions. If you don't have to go out, please don't. I'm dreading going in every day, but please don't. Please listen to the precautions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Mr. Burt, anything else?
Nothing for me.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Thank you for the people listening at home as we get the hang of moving forward with the town's business in these unconventional times. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion. Moved by Heed and seconded by Parker. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. We are adjourned at 8:55. I have no gavel, so we're out. Thank you.